Part 3. February 1982. Minus 37 degrees Celsius. Ice thickness, 1.2 meters. The 17th Independent Underwater Operations Detachment of the Soviet Navy. Major Vyacheslav Anatolyevich Kiselev with 6 divers under his command. Standard assignment, a training dive to a depth of 50 meters. February 20th, 9:05. The group goes under the water, and in 17 minutes, 2 will be dead, 3 will become invalids, because at a depth of 50 meters, Kiselev saw 3 beings, 3 meters tall, in silver suits, without aqualungs. 1 raised its hand, and all 7 divers were thrown to the surface in 15 seconds with lethal decompression. February 1982, 23 years after the first contact, 23 years of Baikal's silence. Temperature, minus 37 degrees Celsius. The lake is covered with 1.2 meters of ice. The 17th Independent Underwater Operations Detachment of the Soviet Navy. Base, Myst-Tolsty, Cape Thick. Training combat swimmers for operations in extreme conditions. Group Commander, Major Vyacheslav Anatolyevich Kiselev, 41 years old, 23 years of service, top category professional, hundreds of dives, awarded the Order of the Red Star for rescuing the crew of a sunken submarine. The group, 7 men. Captain Sergei Baranov, 36, Senior Lieutenant Alexei Gromov, 29, Lieutenant Nikolai Orlov, 27, Midshipman Vladimir Fedotov, 32, Seaman Igor Volkov, 23, and Viktor Novikov, 21. All experienced, minimum 50 dives each. February 20th. Standard assignment, dive to 50 meters through an ice hole. Practice raising sunken equipment. Training, a regular training exercise. 9:05. The 7 put on wetsuits, check their aqualungs, jump into the water. Temperature, plus 3 degrees Celsius. The cold hits like a hammer. Breathing evens out, the descent begins. They go down slowly, controlling their speed. Visibility is excellent, 25 to 30 meters. The water is as clear as air. Depth, 10 m, 20, 30, 40. Almost at the target. Kiselev in the lead, the others in formation behind him. Depth, 48 meters. Kiselev signals, stop, hover. And he sees them. 3 of them are standing on the bottom about 10 meters from the group, motionless. Height, 3 meters, maybe more. Humanoid proportions, but elongated. Long arms, long legs. Suits are silver-colored, tight-fitting, shiny, seamless, smooth. Heads without helmets, faces inhuman. Eyes large, black, without whites or pupils. Just black ovals. Mouth narrow, nose almost absent, skin gray. No aqualungs, no tubes, no masks, nothing. Just standing, looking at the divers. Kiselev freezes, his hand instinctively reaching for the knife on his belt. Baranov to his right is frozen, Gromov to his left. Everyone sees, everyone is motionless. One of the 3, the central one, slowly raises its right hand forward. Palm open, 5 fingers, long, thin. A universal gesture. Stop. Don't come closer. Leave. And Kiselev is thrown. Not pushed, not hit, not touched. Simply thrown, as if an invisible giant hand grabbed his chest and hurled him upward with tremendous force. Like a torpedo. Spinning uncontrollably, tumbling, incredible speed. Baranov is thrown too. Gromov, Orlov, Fedotov, Volkov, Novikov. All 7 simultaneously upward toward the surface at car speed. From 50 meters, you cannot ascend faster than 7 meters per minute, otherwise nitrogen in the blood forms bubbles, blocks blood vessels, decompression sickness, paralysis, death. A proper ascent takes at least 20 minutes with stops. They are ejected in 15 seconds. They fly out through the ice hole onto the ice. The support team rushes to them, removes masks, aqualungs. Novikov is unconscious. Face blue, foam at the mouth, convulsions. Fedotov is screaming, holding his head, blood from his nose. Orlov cannot move his legs. Volkov and Gromov are disoriented. Baranov and Kiselev are in shock. Eyes wide open, breathing rapidly. They are taken to the base, to a decompression chamber. Compression therapy. Novikov dies in 2 hours, pulmonary embolism. Air bubbles blocked the blood flow, cardiac arrest. Fedotov falls into a coma, cerebral edema, dies a week later in an Irkutsk hospital. Orlov, Volkov, and Gromov survive but become invalids. Partial paralysis, loss of coordination, memory problems. Discharged from the Navy. Baranov and Kiselev survive with almost no physical consequences, but their psyches are shattered. Baranov tells a doctor. They raised a hand, and we were thrown. As if a giant invisible hand grabbed and hurled us. But there was no hand, only force. Huge, irresistible force. Kiselev is silent for 3 days, then says. I saw their eyes. Large, black, without pupils. Looking at me, not blinking. And I understood, they didn't want to kill us. They were warning. They spoke without words, get out of here immediately. This is not your territory. The KGB arrives 2 days later, interrogates the survivors, confiscates records, seals off access to the ice hole. Order, cease all diving in this area forever. The survivors are transferred to different bases in different cities, Baranov to Murmansk, Kiselev to Vladivostok, Orlov to Sevastopol, Gromov to Kamchatka, Volkov to Kaliningrad. Scattered across the country so they wouldn't meet, communicate, or create a collective history. And a pattern of deaths begins. Methodical, stretched over 16 years. Captain Baranov dies in 1985, officially drowned while fishing. Body found after 3 days. Senior Lieutenant Gromov dies in 1987, apartment fire. Burned alive. Neighbors say, 2 days before his death, 2 men in suits came. Gromov shouted, leave me alone, I'm not telling anyone. Lieutenant Orlov dies in 1992, car accident. Car crashed into a pole on an empty road. Brakes were functional. Cause unknown. Seaman Volkov dies in 2001, lung cancer. 3 months from diagnosis to death. Before dying, he gives an interview, talks about the beings, about telekinesis. Major Kiselev is still alive as of 2025, 84 years old, lives in Irkutsk. To questions, he replies. I signed non-disclosure agreements for 75 years. The term has not expired. Ask me in 2057, if I live that long. But a year after the tragedy, in July 1983, hydrographers Leonid Koltila and Anatoly Solomov lowered an echo sounder to the maximum depth in the center of the lake, and geometric structures appeared on the screen, rectangular, even, like buildings. And then it became clear why the beings had warned the military divers to leave. July 1983. A year and a half after the diver tragedy, the research vessel, Vereshchagin, in the center of Baikal. Coordinates, 53 degrees 15 minutes 59 seconds north, 108 degrees 5 minutes 0 seconds east. Air temperature, plus 22 degrees Celsius, calm, water like a mirror. Hydrographers Leonid Grigorievich Koltila, 54, and Anatoly Petrovich Solomov, 48. Task, precise depth measurement of the lake for updating navigation charts. They lower a German echo sounder at 1 CDE 225. Purchased for hard currency. The best instrument in the USSR. Accuracy, plus or minus 3 meters. The instrument goes underwater. The cable unwinds. 100 m, 200, 500, 1000. Koltila watches the screen. Numbers grow, 1200, 1400, 1500. It stops at 1642 meters. Koltila looks at Solomov, is silent for a minute. They check again, move the ship 50 meters, lower it again. Same result, 1642 m. They lower a sounding line, a metal weight on a steel cable. The ancient, reliable method. They raise it, measure. 1640 m. Plus or minus 2 m. Confirmed. This is the maximum depth of Lake Baikal. Deeper than any lake on the planet. Deeper than 5 Eiffel Towers stacked on top of each other. But Koltila looks at the echo sounder screen and sees something strange. Signal reflections, straight lines, horizontal, parallel. Not resembling natural relief. Resembling geometric structures. Rectangles like a building. He shows Solomov, who frowns and says, instrument artifact. Interference. Koltila replies, or not. He photographs the screen with a Zenit E camera, 3 shots. Hacks the film, records the coordinates in the ship's log, makes a note, additional research required. They return to base in Listvianka, hand over the data to the expedition chief. The depth of 1642 m is plotted on the map marked, preliminary. The echo sounder photographs are studied by specialists. Conclusion, ambiguous results, possible interference, possible bottom structures of unknown origin. Further research recommended. Follow-up research is scheduled for the next year, but the materials are classified with the stamp, for official use only. The photographs are confiscated. Koltila and Sulemov are told, data not verified, publishing is premature. Wait for official confirmation. Official confirmation comes only in 1992, 9 years later. Where did the photographs go? Why were the data kept secret for 9 years? Unknown. October 1985. 2 years after the discovery of the structures. A military ship in the same area of the Central Lake. Name classified, crew classified, operation classified. But there is a witness. Fisherman Pyotr Semyonovich Noskov, 62. Fishing a kilometer from the military ship. Sees an object being raised from the bottom with a crane. Slowly, carefully, as if afraid to damage it. A metal cylinder, 3 meters in diameter, about 10 meters long, gray in color. On the surface, a row of 5 round windows or portholes. Not a pipe, not a container, something else. Noskov takes out a Zenit camera, takes 5 shots from afar. The ship notices the fisherman, turns, heads towards him. Noskov starts the motor, quickly sails away, manages to reach the shore, hides the camera, takes out the film, puts it in his pocket. 2 hours later, 3 men come to his home. The KGB demands the camera. Noskov hands it over, but the film is already gone. They demand the film. Noskov says, there was no film, the camera was empty. They search the house, don't find it, leave, warning, if you tell anyone, we'll put you in prison. Espionage charges. Noskov remains silent for 30 years. In 2015, he tells his son, shows him the film, he hid it in the wall behind a brick. The son develops it. The photos are blurry, taken from far away, but visible, a metal cylinder, round windows on the surface, a row of 5. The son scans them, shows his father. Noskov looks, is silent for a long time, then says, that wasn't a pipe. That was a capsule. For someone or something. A month later, Noskov dies. Stomach cancer. Fast, 3 weeks from diagnosis to death. The son wants to publish the photos, approaches newspapers. All refuse, not clear enough, could be a fake. He posts on internet forums, publishes. A few sites post them, discussions start. A week later, the sites remove the publications. Reason, violation of rules for publishing classified materials. The photos disappear from the network. Noskov's son, Alexei Petrovich, 43, still keeps the originals, doesn't show them to anyone. Says, I don't want to repeat my father's fate. 1. Part of the KGB archives is declassified. Accidentally, a technical error. Documents end up in open access for 2 days, then are removed, but some manage to download them. Among them, a meeting transcript. June 1983, a month before Koltila's discovery. One of the generals says, the object at the bottom of Baikal is active. The nature of the object is unknown. Origin unknown, age unknown. We know only one thing, they do not want contact. 3 attempts to descend ended with casualties. I recommend mothballing the project until technology appears that allows remote work. The object is active. And it is not a dead city of an ancient civilization, not ruins, not an archaeological monument. It is active. Someone or something lives there. Now. At the bottom, at a depth of 1642 meters, in complete darkness, in +3 degrees Celsius water, under 164 atmospheres of pressure that would crush a human in a second. Geometric structures on the echo sounder screen. Capsules with portholes. 3 beings 3 meters tall in silver suits without aqualungs. Telekinesis throwing 7 divers to the surface in 15 seconds. An object moving at a depth of 900 meters at 80 kilometers per hour. Baikal. A lake 25 million years old, its bottom 1187 meters below sea level. A rift in the Earth's crust, a fissure that widens by 2 centimeters per year. A boundary between continents. A place of power. Gates to the underworld, according to Buriat legends. And in 1972, on the other end of the planet, in Antarctica, on the western coast of the icy continent, Jacques Cousteau finds a white aircraft carrier at a depth of 42 meters with one inscription inside, Eingang. Entrance. And 3 months after returning, he tries to get permission for an expedition to the USSR, to Baikal, but is refused. Tries in 1975, refusal. In 1978, refusal. In 1982, refusal. Every time the same formulation, closed zone. Baikal, an active object on the bottom. Structures like a building. A capsule with windows. Beings without aqualungs. Antarctica, a white aircraft carrier with the inscription Eingang. Entrance. What if these are not two separate places? What if they are two entrances to one system? The bottom of Baikal below the ocean plus an Antarctic cavity below the ocean equals an underground passage through the entire planet. And Cousteau understood this in 1972, standing before the inscription at a depth of 40 meters in icy water. And for 24 years, he tried to get to Baikal to test the hypothesis. 1. February. Cousteau returns from Antarctica. Materials confiscated by French intelligence. The crew dismissed entirely. All 23 people dispersed to different cities, remain silent. But Cousteau does not stop. He understood something there, at 40 meters depth, standing before the inscription Eingang scratched into the metal of the white aircraft carrier. He understood the connection, saw the pattern. And now he needs to test the hypothesis. In May 1973, Cousteau submits a request to the Soviet embassy in Paris. Asks for permission for an expedition to Baikal. Officially, studying the unique ecosystem of the planet's deepest lake for a documentary film in the series, The Odyssey of Jacques Cousteau. Standard formulation. Standard procedure. July 1973. Answer from Moscow. Refusal. Reason: Lake Baikal is located in a closed zone. Access to foreign researchers is prohibited. No explanations, no alternatives. Cousteau repeats the request in 1975. Refusal. Same formulation, closed zone. In 1978, refusal. In 1982, 10 years after Antarctica, refusal. Always the same closed zone. Always the same no. Every time, Cousteau submits requests through official channels, through the embassy, through the ministry, through scientific academies. Every time, he receives a polite refusal. No explanations, no hope. Meanwhile, he films all over the world, the Caribbean, the Amazon, the Mediterranean, the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea. Dozens of expeditions, hundreds of hours of footage. 3 Oscars, world fame, a living legend. But about Antarctica, not a word. Never. Not in a single interview, not in a single book, not in a single film. To journalists' questions about the 1972 expedition, he replies dryly, curtly, cutting off the topic. We filmed whales, studied migration routes. Standard work, nothing unusual. And that's it, conversation over. The people who were with him in Antarctica remained silent too, either by their own will, or under pressure, or out of fear. Engineer André Laban, in a private conversation with a colleague in 1987, 15 years after the expedition, says quietly, looking around. Cousteau knows. He understood it there, in Antarctica. He looked at maps, traced a line with his finger from Antarctica through Africa, through Asia to Baikal, almost a straight line. He said, if I'm right, there should be a second one there. And since then, every year he tries to get to Baikal, but the USSR won't let him. They will never let him. 1. Cousteau meets with representatives of the Soviet government in Geneva, Switzerland. An unofficial meeting. Details are not disclosed. No minutes. No witnesses. Only rumors. After the meeting, Cousteau tells his assistant shortly, angrily, disappointedly. They know that I know. And they will never let me in. Never. 2. Cousteau publishes the book, The Man, the Sea, and the World. An autobiography. The sum of his life. 500 pages of memories, expeditions, discoveries, encounters. The Arctic is described in detail. The 1976 expedition, ice, polar bears, icebergs, aurora borealis. 20 pages of text, photos, maps. About Antarctica, 1.5 pages. General words, whales, cold, the beauty of the icy continent. Not a word about the white aircraft carrier. Not a word about the western coast. Not a word about the German submarines in Argentina. Nothing. As if that expedition never happened. As if he never descended to 40 meters, never saw the ship without a name, never stood for 20 minutes before the inscription Eingang, never photographed it with his personal camera, never surfaced pale with trembling hands. Erased from memory. Or pretended to have erased it. November 9, 1989. The fall of the Berlin Wall. The end of the Cold War. The beginning of perestroika. December 26, 1991. The dissolution of the USSR. The red flag is lowered from the Kremlin. 15 independent republics. New Russia. Chaos, change, open borders, declassification of archives, access to closed territories. Cousteau is 81. Health still strong, strength remains, time is there. The USSR is no more. Closed zones are opening. He can go to Baikal. He can test the 20-year-old hypothesis. He can descend to a depth of 1642 meters and see if there is a second entrance there. But Cousteau does not go immediately. He waits for 5 years. From 1991 to 1996. Why he waits is unclear. End of part 3.